It is a good day, the day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. We terminated our series on the abundant life during the last session. I want to start a new session for the next 10 weeks. And the title is the same as one of my latest books called Living by Strategy. So our series will be entitled Living by Strategy. And I intend to share 10 elements of living by strategy. Let me preamble my sessions by saying that whether we like it or not, we are social beings. We are affected by our culture. We are molded by the type of education that we get, the type of parentage, where we work and our colleagues. None of us is an island of himself or herself unless you live on Robinson Crusoe Island. But even then, you may soon find Man Friday who will team up with you. Therefore, we are all under some influences in one way or the other. That is the fact of being human. But the scripture says something. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. There's a certain mindset that allows you not to be a victim of circumstances, not just to flow by the wind, but you can manage yourself better. I always say that the difference between a dead fish and a live fish in an ocean or the sea is that the dead fish can only follow the tide or the flow, but a live fish is able to swim upstream. Living by strategy is to equip you to be able to be like a live fish who can actually intentionally go against the grain of society if in your assessment there is a better way. As a young man, there's one of the passages in the Bible that struck me. It is Exodus chapter 23, verse 2. It says that don't follow the crowd to do evil. In other words, we are not mere reflectors of our circumstances. We are not chameleons, so that we take the color that is around us. And the secret is living by strategy. I will quickly run through the topics I will be sharing with you and take up the first one only for today. During the series, first I'll be looking at the importance of being intentional about managing your life. And that's what we'll be looking at in details today. Secondly, I will put it to you that the second most important element in living by strategy is to align yourself to an anchor which is not shifting, not going to shift whether there's an NDC or an MPP is in power or whether you are rich or poor, because your anchor holds within the veil. That's what one of the gurus of management, Stephen Adei, calls the true north principle. In other words, your compass should always be aligned to a true north. Thirdly, and flowing from that, we will engage ourselves on ensuring that you have articulated and understood and embraced your life mission, so that you live a mission-driven life, which is another phraseology of Rick Warren's book, which says purpose-driven life. And we will find out that those who are purpose-driven, And I'm using mission in my third one because purpose includes 3 elements of what I'm going to do: mission, vision, and goal-directed lives. So we will spend the third on the importance of having something to live for, a mission, so to speak. Then we will look at the power of vision, being vision-driven. And I'll be introducing 2 elements of vision. The vision of accomplishment, achieving certain targets after a certain period. But there's another vision, the vision of being. For example, you can be rich, but you can be rich by hard work, savings, and investment, or by stealing and bribery and corruption. So we will look at the 2 visions that must drive our lives. That brings me to the third element, which will be our 5th in our series about living by goals. Clarifying your goals for the important areas of your life, least of which should not be your personal, relational, and professional life, which we concluded our last series with. Living by smart goals, be it spiritual, financial, or other areas, and we will look at them. We won't go into details because that is another series, managing your life. That's the details. But at least living by strategy, you must have an overview where you are going so that you don't become a fan of Osibisa and sing, heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will. If you don't know where you are going, you won't get there. And anyway, when you miss your way, you will not know it. The 6th in the series, we would be looking at translating how to work hard to achieve those goals. The important to do it in a way that does not violate your own principles. There are many who are achieving goals against their own principles, and in the end of their life, they say, if I had my life to live again. No. And the 6th one will be devoted to values, value-driven life. In other words, in achieving your mission, vision, goals, they must be undergirded by values. We shall spend the 7th of the importance of acquiring certain knowledge and skills in order to implement your strategies. Here, I'm not talking about getting a PhD in every subject so that if you marry, you must get a PhD or Bachelor of Marriage, then about finance. And no. But interestingly, there's some basic knowledge. The Bible says without knowledge, people perish. That you need in order to manage your life by strategy. The good thing is that almost in all the areas, what you really need to do, the core elements, you can pick it up in in more than 2 hours. I thank God that when I was with the UN, I got a certain small book from some insurance guy who came to visit me, and the title was Common Sense. It was such a small book, it took me only about 30 minutes to read it. And that changed my financial life forever. And since then, by God's grace, I've been helping many young people, and some are now older, to become millionaires. So the skills and the knowledge to live by strategy are not quantum physics. But you cannot live in ignorance. Many people have made shipwreck of their relationships, their marriage, whilst a little understanding will have saved them. In fact, I perchance landed on 3 principles which have saved my marriage for almost 50 years. Once I heard someone say that if a man is filled with the Holy Spirit, ask his wife. Then Norman Vincent Peale's literature I read that he didn't know a man or a woman who are married and read the Bible and pray together every day, who had a challenge in their marriage which they couldn't surmount. These are very simple principles. And yet, at this moment, we have 1 in 2 around the world, marriages breaking up. The 7th, therefore, is the need for certain minimal skills, and we will share them in our series after Leading by Strategy, the details of it. In Living by Strategy, we will only broach the principles, and then we will leave the details for a later time. But it's said that if wishes were riches, beggars will live in castles. At the end of the day, you can know all these things, but there's the need for discipline. And that's what we'll be talking about in the 8th session, for discipline, tenacity, and grit, so that you are not going to give up. I always tell people that, for example, if you start saving towards being a millionaire, not stealing money as people are doing everywhere, but through hard work, the first 3 years can be very disappointing. For example, if a young man saves the equivalent of 100 Ghana cedis a month, the first year he has only saved 360 plus a little bit interest. Second year he goes to about 800,000. The next he goes to 8,000, and then he may, by the end of the 3rd year, just exceeded 10,000. But if he persists and is disciplined with tenacity and grit, in 30 years he will be a millionaire. So we will look up at the importance of discipline, perseverance, until you reach your goals. At the 9th session, I will be sharing how much of the things when you start is difficult, you can make it habit. In fact, most of us live by habit. In fact, the dangerous part is that we even take serious ventures like driving as a habit. And if you want to say that you don't drive by habit, why do you panic when the one in front of you suddenly decides to make the road their garage and stop? That's the first time you are being intentional. Whereas all the time, you should have been aware that somebody may stop or some child will cross the road. But this is not an accusation of anybody. We all are creatures of habit. But then we can make that an advantage in our living by strategy, so that there are certain habits you acquire that undergird your marital relationship. Work ethic is a habit, which when you learn good work ethic, wherever you go, it puts you in good stand. Also, in terms of your your personal life. For example, when you sleep and when you wake, makes a lot of difference in your next day. You go and ask those who booze in the night. The next day, when they are getting out of bed, they know how it feels. The 9th session is that you must translate this, most of the things we'll be sharing, into habits, and then you become habituated. In other words, it becomes part and parcel of you. For example, it's quite serious that I don't want to drive after 8:30 p.m. By God's grace, my eyes are good. At 75, I have to thank God for it. But I've been sleeping at 8:30 for decades in order to wake up at 4 a.m. That, in fact, at 8:30, even if I had a nap in the afternoon, I start falling asleep, which is not the best thing to do, to be driving and falling asleep. That is the power of habit. Translate it. And of course, finally, we will look at the importance of achieving much of your strategies in time. And that requires mission, vision, and roles-driven time management. So this is what we will be going through under this new series, Living by Strategy. I've already spent more than half of my time. Let me therefore take the first one, which is much more simpler. It will not take much time, but as important as others. In the literature, we have, in the leadership literature, those who are familiar with it will come across the concept of high self-monitor. A high self-monitor is a person, of course, he works, he has colleagues, he goes to church, he has a family, but every now and then distances himself or herself to look at things objectively. In fact, those who have that type of character eventually become the leaders of their group and their society. Those who follow the crowd don't become leaders. And the reason is that, unlike everybody else, they at certain point are intentional. They think through, what are we doing? Is that the best way we can do? Can we do it differently? Intentionality. But let me tell you, it is easier said than done, as Paul Martin in my friend's book said, when he was a beggar and he put the money he had begged for the whole day down, and the thief came and stole them all. And he was mad. He called the French police. It was in a friend's book, so the context is France. And then, he was worked up, and then a friend said that, look, just be patient. Then he looked at the friend and said, if it were you, can you be patient when all your collections for the day have been stolen? So being intentional is easy understood, but not easy to implement. Why? Because you were brought up in a certain way. And as much as mom and dad tried, probably there are certain ways in which you were brought up, which is not best for you. You have to intentionally change it. There is a society. Sometimes we talk about our tribes. All are equal in terms of they give us some sort of identity. So that if you are a Ga, an Ashanti, a Dagomba, and Ewe, you are dear to it. However, your culture shapes you in a certain way. And you can actually, the main tribes, when you see a person there who has not been intentional, you can predict their likely reaction. Why? Because culture is a way we do things. It has to do with beliefs, behaviors, habits, and what the society says. This is how we intend you to live. But the question is everything in your culture the best for you to achieve your aim? You have to be intentional. These days, for the young people, we are not talking about Hogochocho or Asante culture or other things. No, we are talking about what is trending. Who is your model? Is that I see some young man, a young man, the other day I met one near my village, and I called him young man. I said, a young man come here with a certain type of hairdo. And I says, in case you are among people and they say thief and the police come, what's likely to be happening to you? He said, they will pick me up. And I says, why? Then he was hesitant. I said, I can tell you why. Because your hairdo, culturally in the mind of people, has to do with either you are a homosexual, you are a drug addict. And I saw him. He's a very nice young man. He's amazing, doing a decent job. And I said that, but does any of these things describe you? He says no. But I says, then why do you project something which is not you, which can land you in trouble? And the reason is that they have picked it from the so-called Shatawales and what are the other names which are going about. Yeah, that is their model. Are you going to have your life determined by these people? The question is that if you are intentional, you have thought about it, and you are not pushed, that is it. It's a decision. But be careful who is your model. Because everybody is doing it, are you doing it? Let me tell you that we live in a country whereby if you are a good worker, you become a target for destruction. Why? Because everybody is stealing. And therefore, if you are not stealing, you become a target. You are a threat to them. Everybody is doing a bayanduma. If you stand out, they say that no bayanduma. And interestingly, I'm the CEO of an organization with 320 people. Do you know, every now and then, some people are targeted as informers to the CEO, and they have a hard time. And if you go through it, invariably, they are the best workers. And I say that, but in this case, it's a school. What will a teacher or a worker do in a school which will require somebody informing the executives about you? No. What they are saying is that we have a standard here. You are getting out of line. You better get in line, or we will deal with you. We will make life uncomfortable with you until you leave. What am I saying? We are always, and not only the younger people, the older people. Do you know why so many people are stealing nyafu nyafu? Politicians, customs officials and everything else. Why? Because the pressure is to make it. In one case, a young person was employed. Within 3 years, he has put on 3-bedroom house of his own and then building another one, which is 8 flats, only to be found that he was stealing money and had to be dismissed. The pressure of getting rich quick is everywhere. The solution, if you are going to live by strategy, the first is being intentional about how you live. To think through your principles. Who am I? What can I do? What is the best way? And then, if you are intentional, you will find that there are many things that are within your reach. The first step in living by strategy is as simple as it is difficult. Be intentional about your life. Be intentional about your faith. Be intentional about your relationships. Be intentional about your work ethic. Be intentional about your financial future. Be intentional, and you will find that actually you are in the driver's seat, not your friends, not your employer, not even the government. You will come to where God comes in. But if you are not intentional, even your faith may be on the wrong track. For Jesus said, I shall not benefit anyone to gain even the whole world and lose his soul. I wish you the best, and that is living by strategy. And the first step is being intentional. It's the first step in living by strategy. I wish you the best, and please meet me again on ZFM 101.9. You come to an Air Force, you meet me in YouTube. My desire is that some of these principles, which did not come easy to me, may benefit you, especially younger folks, that you don't learn them by trial and error, as some of us did. Shalom, and may God be with you.